So I just picked up this $100 Alienware laptop off of Facebook Marketplace. It comes with a charger and is apparently factory reset, although I have no idea what the specifications are. Although given that it doesn't look like it's that old, I think I got a real bargain, so let's power it up and take a look. So here it is, the hefty 15-inch Alienware beast. For those in America, 100 Australian converts to about $65 US. And here's the large 240 watt charger. Not so great for portability, hey? The hinge feels pretty strong, but it is a filthy machine. The keyboard is well seasoned, but at least the casing doesn't appear to be damaged. Finger marks and general grubbiness will clean up with ease. You can really tell where it was constantly grabbed. Even though it's a fairly new laptop, some parts of it are actually becoming sticky. Yeah, the rubberized coating on a laptop, even this new, has started to go bad, and we'll see what we can do to try and clean that up. And those fans do look like they could use a dusting. Anyway, let's power it up to see exactly what we're in for. The battery does seem to be working, which is a good sign. And there's Windows 10 ready to be set up. A short time later, I was in, and it's an Alienware 15 R2 with an i7 6700 HQ CPU and 8GB of RAM. But without proper drivers installed, we don't know what graphics processor it has. Have you ever lost your files because you didn't back them up? Well, today's sponsor Backblaze is here to help. They offer unlimited cloud backup with easy recovery options. Access your backed up data from anywhere in the world using their web app. That could be photos, videos, contracts, anything at all. Backblaze is also recommended by many top tech websites. Own a business? Click Business Backup on the website to start backing up your business data today. And you get all this for $7 a month. Unlimited cloud storage for Mac, PC, and business. And there's also a 15-day free trial available using my link. And that price gets even better. If you purchase a 1 or a 2-year plan, you save even more. Even if you delete files or create new versions, you've got the option to keep them for up to a year for an extra $2 a month. They've restored over 55 billion files for customers and have this many bytes of data in storage being used. Now that's a big number. Sign up for a free trial and find out why Backblaze is LifeWire's favorite online backup service. Go to backblaze.com/Psivewright to find out more. With all the correct drivers installed, we can now do a graphics card reveal. It's probably got a 970, and given the 128GB SSD and only 8GB of RAM, probably not a 980M, which would be awesome. So let's see exactly what it's got. Drumroll please, it's a 965M 2GB card? Well, that's kind of unfortunate. So let the teardown begin. The sticker on the back is barely readable, but it does say that the display was replaced. Getting access to the basic components is easy, loosening off 2 screws, then prying up on this plastic cover. Before doing anything else, you should disconnect the battery. And it appears that this machine has 2 M.2 NVMe slots, and the single drive that's in there is a pretty slow SATA one by the looks of it. I'll be switching out this 8GB of RAM for some faster, higher capacity sticks. The old 2.5-inch mechanical hard drive will also be upgraded. I've got a bunch of 240GB MX500 SSDs. I'll put one in here for storing games. To dig in further, you've got to remove all of these case screws that you can see, including the one that was underneath the RAM sticks. And be sure to disconnect all of the ribbon cables linking the motherboard to the keyboard deck. Dislodging the Wi-Fi antennas also seems like a good idea. Then to separate the bottom and top casing, it says to push your finger on a particular area. Gradually, I unclip the edges, being careful not to snap anything. All of the long ribbon cables should now slide out, but just make sure they don't snag on anything. There's one more connector at the front. Now the whole keyboard deck is free to be removed. It looks like we'll be in for a bit of a dusty as well as hairy time. There's a good chance the previous owner had cats. The tutorial I was following said you should remove the fans after taking out 2 Phillips head screws. This is in fact wrong, as there are definitely more screws underneath the motherboard. So it's time to remove the motherboard. Many screws hold it in place, and be sure to make note of their location. You've also got to carefully disconnect the display and daughterboard connectors. It looks as if the display is coming off for us to progress further. There are several hinge screws to remove, 2 of which are at the back, and it took me quite a bit of time before I realized this. We have liftoff, and I actually nearly dropped it, narrowly missing the mainboard. Lastly, I dislodged a connector that I'd previously missed. It's for the Tron light, a rather interesting name. Sometime fiddling later, the board lifted up and out, revealing the small amount of carpet that had formed. This is what happens when you live in a dusty place or have pets. After removing the last of the screws, the fans can now come out. This model is designed to cool up to a 980M graphics processor, so it has good cooling and plenty of airflow, meaning it will get dusty. Pet hair has eventually forced its way even inside the keyboard, and I'll try to clear it out a bit. The cooling fins are also in need of a cleanup. I also brushed them outside afterwards. They weren't completely clogged, which is a good start, and it's worth opening up the fans themselves if possible, as a lot of dirt and dust tends to build up on the blades. The heatsink is held on with 8 spring-loaded screws for even tension. I find loosening off diagonal pairs is best. Now that is some crusty paste. It's basically rock hard, not exactly how it should be. An excessive amount of paste was used, especially on the CPU die, and after using some isopropyl alcohol and a few Q-chips, the copper surfaces looked pretty good. The new paste will help it run cooler, allowing for an efficient transfer of heat away from the processors. It's a shame the graphics processor can't be swapped out, as I'd love to have a 980M in here. I'm pretty sure the 965M in here can only run at 50 watts from what I've read, which is pretty limiting in such a well-cooled, gaming-focused laptop. And I'm also making an effort to apply a bit of Loctite to all of the screws. This stops them loosening due to vibrations. Getting into one of these laptops is a fairly big effort. Earlier Alienware models were definitely much easier to work on. If you take your time and pay attention, it's more just time consuming more than anything. Believe me, if I wasn't filming the entire process, I probably could have done it in under 30 minutes. I'll admit threading the ribbon cables back in through the gap was a bit fiddly, and I'm guessing this design didn't last for too long. And it was fairly satisfying to clip it all back together. The Crucial MX500 is definitely one of the better SATA SSDs available. It'll make for a good drive to store games on, and in goes 32GB of DDR4 memory along with both of the drives. If I was to use this as my own laptop, I would say it would be worth replacing the 120GB boot drive with faster NVMe storage. And with care taken not to damage the mound of unsightly ribbon cables, it was all back together. At first I thought the sticker on the base was going to come off without much effort, but then it ripped. I left some sticker remover to sit on the surface for a few minutes, and then it scraped off without much fuss. I then gave the casing a wipe down with a healthy dose of eucalyptus oil. It seems to work pretty well on grubby marks and gunk that's built up on the surfaces. The display was also looking pretty filthy, nothing a bit of lens cleaner can't fix though. Much better now. And a dab of eucalyptus oil was pretty effective at removing the melting rubber on the mouse buttons. Now it's just a smooth plastic surface. The keyboard deck wasn't too bad, just a little dirty more than anything, but in a year or two it might be worth scraping off the rubber coating. And it looks like the refurbishment was a success. It's reading the new RAM and solid state hard drive. Quad-core, 8 threads, and a lot of thermal headroom. This is a pretty solid laptop. So let's see exactly what this machine is capable of, shall we? A good starting point would be to see how the latest version of Minecraft 1.20.1 works. Yes, this is my old server that I'm currently still running. Feel free to join if you want. And how about we make things a little more taxing by enabling some shaders? This still maintains 60 frames per second. Very playable, and it looks a lot nicer than vanilla Minecraft. The next game I'm running is PUBG Battlegrounds. Generally, this is pretty taxing on older computers, and I'm running it at 1080p lowest settings, which still surprisingly looks pretty good, and it also maintains 60 frames per second. Running BeamNG Drive at 1080p low settings was also fine. This game isn't too demanding until you enable AI cars. This will often halve the frame rate on laptops as it pushes both the GPU and CPU simultaneously. It runs at around 50 frames per second, which, all things considered, isn't bad at all. The temperatures are also pretty good with this machine. During CPU and GPU benchmarks, they rarely exceeded 70 degrees once the fans kicked in. I was hoping to edit a video on this, connecting it to my Thunderbolt dock, but it turns out that it's just simply not compatible. So I can't simply plug in my whole setup using one convenient cable. I attempted to work on a project of mine, however, you'd really need some fast NVMe storage to do this with any level of fluidity. It's in a bit of a weird spot. It looks really powerful, but it really was pretty much the lowest spec version Alienware they were selling nearly 8 years ago. And running it on battery, it definitely won't last long if gaming, and it's pretty heavy. Don't get me wrong, the design is beautiful, very industrial with lots of sharp edges. It's mean, it's aggressive, but it only has a 2GB 965M graphics processor. It doesn't matter how much RGB lighting this laptop has, it's pretty dated now. The strong complement of ports is nice to have, but the limited Thunderbolt compatibility does make this less appealing to someone like me. But this was only $100 Australian, and keeping that in mind, that's a pretty good deal. So there we have it, a truly excellent laptop for the money, and you've really just got to keep your eyes open for deals like this because they go pretty fast. And I was lucky enough to be the first person to respond to the ad. And also big thanks to Backblaze for sponsoring this video and making this possible. If you want to help out the channel, you can become a member or just like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.